Welcome to the Amphigory Effect podcast with your host, Zach Brackett, and your co-host, Justin Marlowe. Let's begin.
I was like, what are you doing, dude? Like, what is your problem?
I think it's funny how the whole process is like coming full circle back to the same garbage we used to do 2 years ago.
Yep, it is.
I need some change, man.
It does
Need a
some
change of scenery.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Amphigory... blah, 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 blah.
Welcome, guys, to the Amphigory Effect. I'm your host, Justin. This is Zach joining me. Wesley's on the mic somewhere.
Yep.
And
How
today,
you doing? How you doing?
Oh, sorry. I'm doing great. How are
Yeah?
you, Zach?
I'm all right. I'm doing good. I feel a little out of sync today. I think it's because...
You just screwed up the intro?
I did screw up the intro, and it is finals week, man.
Yeah,
And I'm
it's
about
horrible.
to die inside. It's terrible. It's sucking literally the life out of me.
It's almost over, though.
It is. Today is my last day.
Okay, well...
How much longer do you have?
Till the end of the week, pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, till Thursday.
That sucks. Well, we have some exciting stuff. We have someone followed our advice and went on our YouTube's videos,
Finally.
and he submitted a topic, and we'll tell you that topic right after we give a little shout out to our board back here. We actually have 3 patrons now, and they did the rewards plan where we get to say their names on the show.
Excellent.
So I want to give a special shout out to Debbie Dover, Don Cruz, and Hector Cruz for being our first ever patrons.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. You're the reason that we do this, guys. And if you want your name on the show and you want to help us, if we get up to 10 patrons, we will. I'll let them plastic at my car or 50 YouTube subscribers. Right now we have 16, so that's up by quite a bit since the last time.
Yeah,
we
almost
did a
double.
show.
I think since the last time I looked.
So it's great, guys. Thank you so much. We're on our way. I'm anxious about getting my car plastic
Yeah,
dipped.
I cannot wait to ruin what little resale value it has left.
I don't think there is a resale value on it at all.
Not when I'm done with it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so I will be in touch with you Patreon people about what colors we want to do it when that stuff comes around. And I just really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. But on
Yeah, let's dive
forward unto the breach we go. Andrew Brackett commented on, I think it was our storytelling and gaming episode.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, first of all, that what we were talking about was awesome. So thank you so much, Andrew. And he asked us what we thought about the evolution of gaming and more specifically consoles and how we think Xbox matches up against the PlayStation. So that is quite a load to carry.
Yeah, that's a big topic.
Yeah,
but
and I like
should be fun.
I like how people are giving us suggested topics and that now we're going into more nerd stuff. So it's cool.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
It
what
kind of gives us an
people
excuse
want.
to talk about that kind of thing without
Yes.
feeling bad about it.
Yes, give
Too
the people
bad.
what they want, right? Okay, so first I want to jump into, we're going to briefly talk about the evolution. And I thought this was really cool. The first game machine ever, first one ever, was unveiled by Dr. Edward Condon at the New York World's Fair in 1940. And it
Wow.
was a pretty basic computer. It was based on the ancient mathematical game NIM. I don't really know all that much about it, but have you heard about it?
I don't know how to play or anything.
Right.
But yeah, I have heard of it.
Well, it was like 50,000 people that played in like 6 months, and the computer beat them 90% of the time.
Not bad.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty difficult game, whatever
Yeah.
it was. But I mean, that was the first technical
actually,
game.
I think I have heard of NIM. For
Oh, yeah?
people who don't know, I think it's a game where you have a certain number of balls, right? And you select a number of balls to take away, and if you're left, the person who's left with like no balls to take loses. I actually saw a board game that like was a mechanical computer version of that was impossible to beat. So yeah, that's kind of what NIM is. It's a game where you choose how many of a thing to take away, and whoever is left at the end loses.
So essentially, it was a computer that does mathematical formulas.
Yeah.
In a form of a game, so it wasn't like what we're
it's
thinking of games.
kind of like a math trick.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
there's a
and
way to win. You can play.
Yeah.
You can play it against other people, but yeah.
Right. That makes sense. And then so on to like the first console, and this was surprising to me. I didn't know this, but in 1972, the Magnavox Odyssey was technically the first gaming console ever. I thought it was the Atari, but I looked it up, and actually, like Atari came out a few months after. I think it was just Atari was so much bigger than the Magnavox Odyssey that I've never
Poor
heard of.
Magnavox, man.
I know, right?
I don't think they make
they're
TVs anymore, do they?
So I guess that proves
that was my first TV.
just because you're the first to the punch doesn't mean that you're
Right.
the best.
I think there's a lot of examples of that throughout the history of gaming that we'll see as we talk about that.
Right,
more.
right. Okay, so now we're kind of into where we were growing up a little bit. I started playing. I played the Atari and the Sega Genesis and stuff, but I didn't play them in their time. I
Right.
played them like my parents had them, and I also played the Super Nintendo. Was like my first thing I got like hooked on. Super Mario. Oh boy, Super Mario is so good. What was the first thing that you remember like having or playing or?
Yeah, I was really into them early on. I got into them about the same time as you. Super Nintendo, Genesis, which I think they call the Master System in the UK, in the European regions. They named it something different for some reason.
I am
and then I
woefully
had an original brick Game Boy.
brick Game
Yeah.
Boy. Nice.
Yep, sure
That's
did.
fantastic. I had, oh man, what do they call it? Was it Game Boy SD? Was it maybe?
The SP, the little
SP,
folding one.
SP, yeah,
That came out quite a few years later.
Yeah, I had that. That was the first like handheld thing. I had a PSP, but I loved the Super Nintendo was the first thing I got hooked on. They had to like rip it away from me because I was just playing it all.
Yeah,
the
man,
time.
that was the heyday of video games. A lot of people think.
Yeah.
Arcades were
platformers.
really huge back then too.
Yeah, I didn't really go to that many arcades. I think it was a little bit past. I was a little bit past the time.
Yeah, that and you kind of had to be in like a more urban area to really.
Yeah, I lived out in the sticks.
Same. So
Yeah.
or at least far enough away that.
Now I'd like to get like an old Mrs. Pac-Man or Pac-Man something and put him in like my
Yeah.
man cave or something. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I think I'd play that a lot, or at least it would look cool in there. Like like
I don't know if I'd get Pac-Man, but
what would you get?
I'd probably get a fighting game. I'd probably get like Street Fighter 2 or something.
Oh, okay, yeah. I forgot that even existed for a stand-up.
I mean,
games like that.
there's all kinds of stuff you can do out there. They actually have arcade emulators, and people will like build cabinets and just
put a computer.
because
in there?
the actual boards, like the games come in like circuit boards rather than like cartridges or discs.
Right.
So it can be super expensive to actually get your hands on a popular or like a rare game.
Yeah, I imagine so. That's a very like collector item thing.
Oh,
to have.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
I remember when me and Taylor got married, we went up to we got married in front of a building, in front of a house, an old house, at plantation style. And I went up the stairs to like get ready and take pictures, and I was already ready, of course. And there was
15 minutes later.
I think it was Pac-Man maybe. I can't remember exactly, but it was an old arcade game, and I was just like, yes. And
That's
I just
pretty
went
cool.
over there and played it. And I don't know why it was there, and it was an old house. It was really nice. And then randomly in one room, it had a basketball goal, a boxing ring or something, and a Pac-Man game. I was like, whatever.
Okay, this is cool.
So the first game you were ever hooked on, what was that? Can you remember?
As a young kid, the
Yeah.
one that I think strikes back to me the most is probably either Sonic 2 or Sonic 3. Sonic 2
Wow.
was that game was hard as balls
Yeah.
for an 8-year-old.
So that was on the Sega Genesis?
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember dying to the last jump on the Toxic Factory level over and over and over.
Man, but see, like, I wish, and I still have this to a point, but I wish I still had that tenacity as a child. Like, because I would play a level for hours. Like, it didn't matter if I was losing the same exact spot.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm a little bit less inclined to do that. If I lose like 4 times in the same spot of a video game, I'm like, no, screw this. I'm going to do something
I
else.
will sit there until it
Oh,
dies.
you'll still
yeah,
have it?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. It's just, there is a part of me, like the pride side, that says, you got to beat this. But if
Yeah.
I have remotely anything else more interesting to do, I'll be like, no, this is not worth it.
Well, I guess I'm just too proud.
You're just too proud. You got too much pride.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I had Super Nintendo. That was awesome. And then I think my first, and I said this earlier, first modern gaming system.
Yeah.
And that kind of stood out to you, that I kind of made that distinction in my mind. And then we started talking about how, I'm going to sound like an old man now, kids these days are growing up with these super awesome consoles like Xbox One and PlayStation 4, or even Xbox and PlayStation, coming up, and that's going to be their Nintendo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's really hard to. I mean, for me personally, even the games I didn't play, like some of the NES games
Yeah.
that I didn't have access to, I went back and played as I got older.
I did too. As
But
like
if you're a
emulators
kid
and
growing up today with a PS4 or something, you have such a huge library, like the history of games to go through. It's hard to imagine that most of those kids will ever do that.
I
even if they're
don't think they
interested.
will unless they have some kind of like profound interest in vintage games.
And then there's also the issue where, the hardware, at least for a lot of these games, is reaching a point where someday it might be impossible to even get a hold of them. Like people are saying that the capacitor life on the original run of NESs is going to run out within the next like 10 or 20 years, to the
Really?
point where none of the original NESs will work anymore without having parts replaced. And that's a crazy thought.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure people have heard of like I know even when I had Pokemon Silver back in the day,
Whoa.
and the battery, which keeps track of your time, died. So, I mean, that just goes to show that like the hardware is not forever.
Yeah, and I used to play a whole lot of that more on emulators when I got a laptop.
It's great that they exist.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And if you guys don't know, an emulator is just something, it's in the name, that essentially runs on your computer, but it runs the old style, not always old style, but a lot of older games. Like you could play Pokemon and Super Mario and all that. And
there is some legal ramifications of that.
Yeah,
if you don't own the game.
You
that
have to be
you're
careful.
playing.
If you're doing it the ethical way, you're supposed to physically own a copy of the game, and then you're kind of morality free of
you
getting
kind of
a
use
copy.
the emulator is kind of like a backup,
Right.
which you are allowed to create by law, I believe.
Yeah, you are allowed
Of
to have them.
software that you own,
So
yeah.
yeah, just take that with a grain of salt. But they're a great thing, to have and kind of experience some old games. And if you like Pokemon nowadays or something, go back and check out the old ones. Like
I think they're important, like from like a curation aspect of like video games as an art form. If you have a movie, you can have that film reel and you can still
Right.
watch it or have it on DVD. But if there were no emulators and all the NESs break, then that's
they'd be
it.
gone.
You can never play Super Mario again.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it is, and I'm glad that we have some form where these things won't just die out, and
Yeah.
I'm sure eventually they will, because again, this generation's Nintendo is the PlayStation,
Right.
And I remember getting a PlayStation 2. I didn't have an Xbox or a PlayStation 1, right? I didn't have those.
Well, okay, just so people understand the timeline here, the original Xbox, which is confusing now because people used to call it the Xbox One.
But they can't.
It's actually the original Xbox. So it's like the Xbox Zero. That's,
yeah.
blame
the first.
Microsoft for that one. That actually came out about the same time as the PlayStation 2. The original PlayStation came out in like 94, 95, several years before the
Right,
PS2
and
the
it's
original
weird for
Xbox.
me that I jumped back because I was born in '94, so it would make sense that I would initially be playing like PlayStations and PlayStation 2s.
Well, I think it makes perfect sense. Like I know that the reason that I got a Super Nintendo and a Sega was because by the time I was old enough to enjoy them and my parents got them for me, they were dirt cheap. They weren't brand new.
Yeah, that was a
So-
big part of it too. I think my mom actually had one from like way back or something, and that's what I played on. So by the time I was able to like either get it for Christmas, I can't remember. I think maybe my stepbrother left it at my house or something, a PlayStation 2, and that was it, man. After that point,
I think that kind of thing will probably be more common though, right? Because I think like a higher percentage of adults are going to be people that played video games
as children.
and
And
will
just-
have them when they're adults and when they
Right.
have kids.
So
that
I mean,
their
I'm
kids will
sure
play
like
games.
there will be some kids on a podcast 10 years from now saying, "Oh yeah, my stepbrother moved out and left me a PlayStation 4."
PS4.
Yeah.
That's just so strange to think about.
Yeah, it is weird. But what's cool about it is the fact that that PlayStation 2 to me was so much different because I had jumped from like platformer style games to these you actually move real people.
I think that year, that was about 2001 that came
Yeah.
out. I think that was a big jump. I think that was when the control schemes and things changed enough to where like 3D games became not just a novelty, but
Right.
actually playable.
Yeah.
There were some things like that on the PS1 and the Nintendo 64, which came out around like 95, 96. But the cameras were really hard to control. You couldn't. A lot of times it was hard to tell what you were doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was a big jump when you went to the PS2 and the Xbox. The other huge thing was that was the first time that you'd been able to play, for most people at least, online on
Right.
a console.
That's
And
a
that was
huge thing, yeah.
It was huge. It like totally
Because you don't have to do
transformed-
LAN anymore, right? You don't have to have
Well,
people.
I'm not even sure if
That-
LAN was
yeah,
a
that might
thing,
not
'cause you
even
didn't even
exist,
have like a PS1 didn't even have like a network port.
yeah.
The
Yeah,
closest
that's
you
true.
could get was one of those little multi-tap things. It was like something you plug into your controller port, and it has like 4 little other sockets.
Yeah. I think I actually lied to you. I now remember having a GameCube. So I think maybe
You poor man. I'm so sorry.
GameCube, dude. I loved the GameCube when I was a kid.
I did too, but
The little
it
tiny
only
discs
really
that were
had
like
one
this
game.
big.
Yeah.
What was the game?
Melee, dude. Smash Brothers.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
A game of all games.
I played that. Mario Kart was good. I thought-
Yeah,
love
I
Mario Kart.
had some fun with that.
It was
Mario
pretty
Kart.
much all Mario. Like I played
Yeah.
Mario Party, Mario, like the racing game. Oh, Animal Crossing, dude.
Oh god. Well, I think it's interesting. Like, like as far as like the history of games, I think Zach mentioning the GameCube is a huge one because that combined with like the net play features that the other two consoles had, and the GameCube notably did not have. That was a huge reason that and lack of third-party games.
Yeah.
It was mostly Mario.
Well, it's
flavored
Nintendo,
stuff.
yeah.
Right? Exactly. But the other consoles had like the games that were exclusive to their consoles and the things that were shared. And the GameCube lost out on a lot of that stuff because of the hardware was a little weaker than the Xbox, a little stronger than the PS2. The controller actually lacked buttons. There were some games you just couldn't play because you didn't have enough ways to
Yeah.
do things.
Yeah.
Lack of net play. The disc sizes were smaller.
Tiny.
Yeah, the discs were like little tiny. Oh, sorry, little tiny baby discs. They weren't full DVDs, so
No.
they were smaller.
Very
You couldn't
exclusive,
have
yeah.
as big games on the
Yeah.
console without having to like change discs out, which
Yeah.
everybody hates.
Yeah.
So that actually took Nintendo was on this like huge pedestal where they were just the king of the industry, and in a lot of ways, that console generation, those 3 consoles are what's made the PlayStation, Xbox like the 1 and 2 big
yeah.
deal.
Yeah, because I mean, Nintendo came back a little bit, I think, with the Switch, but it's not enough right now.
Yeah, they're definitely not in the same place they used to be.
No, they're not.
And that's why they have a Switch instead of like another Wii, is because they're under so much pressure that they want to occupy some other space instead of directly competing.
Right.
But I think before we move on from this time period, there is one console that many people forget that was a huge deal that we have to mention, I think, in the
Okay.
history of video games.
Okay.
And that console is the Dreamcast, the Sega Dreamcast.
Oh, no,
People wonder
come
what happened
on.
to Sega. The Dreamcast.
That's what
guys.
happened.
The Dreamcast was an incredible console. This thing came out in '99, right? Like over a year before the PS2. It had net play, free online net play, right? The thing could run like computer programs. You could put, I think it was Windows CE on your Dreamcast. Now, the thing that killed it, unfortunately, is like a computer, it gave you so much freedom that it was abusable. You could actually burn games and play them on your Dreamcast
Right.
with no DRM whatsoever.
Right.
So
That's where it's kind of started to die.
that had a huge part of it.
The Sega Dreamcast. I never played it. I didn't really know anything about it.
Ugliest thing in the world. If you don't know anything about it, I urge you to Google a picture of the controller. Maybe we can provide that. The cord is on the bottom, and it has like a see-through glass thing where you like plug in memory cards.
I actually think I'm gonna look it up. Sega Dreamcast
Yeah.
controller.
I don't know what Sega was smoking, and the cord was like 4 feet long. You had to like sit directly in front of your
Holy
TV.
crap.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. If you thought the N64 controller was bad,
That's
like,
bad.
The
It
Dreamcast
looks like a
was on another
spaceship.
level. Yeah,
Or an alien.
yeah. But
That is amazing.
just more people need to know about the Dreamcast because it pioneered so many things that
Right.
we take for granted today.
Right. So if you got nothing else from this podcast, you learned about the Sega Dreamcast, and
Yeah.
that's all that matters. All right. So let's get into PlayStation versus Xbox.
Yeah, because that's really what the game is.
That's what it is right
Now,
now. Yeah,
yeah.
that's modern day. I tried to look up some stats. Do you know anything about just straight up stats for PS4 versus
You're
Xbox?
talking like hardware horsepower.
Right, for the not the PS4 Pro or
Right.
Xbox Scorpio or whatever they're doing.
On paper, the PS4 is slightly to moderately a stronger console.
That's what I thought.
But the thing is, the only place that's really going to show up is on games that are on both consoles, right?
Right.
And if you're not getting like a bigger resolution or a higher frame rate, then all
You
those
won't
differences
even-
really
yeah,
just
it
wash
doesn't
out. Most
matter.
people aren't going to notice.
Right.
On games that are exclusive to those consoles, they're going to be optimized for that console.
Yeah.
So it's not going to matter
Right,
too
okay.
much. But yeah, if that matters to you, if that's the deciding factor, then yeah, the PS4 has a little more horsepower. But now, like you were saying, now that we're coming out with like pro versions of consoles, which I think is insane,
It's
every
ridiculous.
other year, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, I think, to brag about or even really consider which console is significantly stronger.
Well, it's just in a year. It's
Yeah.
less than a year probably. It's gonna be. It doesn't matter anymore. And that's the thing. Like I don't have $400 to spend
Right.
like on a game console every.
Well,
year.
hopefully this is like this won't be something that'll become a pattern, and it has something to do with like the emergence of 4K TVs and stuff like that in the middle of a console generation. And 4K is still kind of like a weird technology. I mean, we're still in a world where most of our console games aren't even running at 60 FPS at 1080p. So to expect them to run at a 4K resolution at 60 FPS or even 120, God forbid, it's just not going to happen anytime soon.
Just take all the money you're going to spend on consoles and go and build a PC.
I mean,
Like-
I don't want to force PC down people's throats, but I do think more people should be aware of it
Yeah, I mean,
and the advantages that it has.
it does have some, and I understand like the whole there's a family thing associated a little bit, or an ease of use thing, a user friendly thing about consoles that
That's true. I feel like they're losing that advantage.
right, and I understand that, but from just like a face value looking in, like I know PC gaming isn't really all that hard to do, but you automatically, like if you're looking inside right from out, you're like, well, console, all I have to do is buy the thing and just put games in.
Yeah.
That's all I have to do. I don't have to worry about how it runs.
Even
or,
then, I feel like that's if you're a person who does not care how your game runs and you will just take whatever is given to you, that's true.
yeah.
But
If you want the best,
but
of the best.
if you think that like the majority of the games you're playing on console are running like at the resolution that you think they're running at the refresh rate of your screen, that's probably just not the case, and you
Right.
don't even know it. Whether you care or not is your issue.
right, that
but
makes sense.
You're not getting like the premium
Yeah.
performance out of a console. You're just not.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But back to what Andrew was asking.
Yeah.
And I know Andrew. He's my brother. I'll just go ahead and say it. So he's my brother. We have this conversation a lot. I play PlayStation. He plays Xbox. He plays my old Xbox One. And so we constantly have this like discussion about which one's better and why. And really, to me, like I like the PlayStation better because to me, and this is all opinion from this point on,
Yeah.
really, it feels sleeker to me. The gameplay feels a little bit smoother, and I like the exclusive games that come out for PlayStation more than I like the Xbox.
As someone who doesn't own a console right now that just plays on PC, to me the argument entirely comes down to what are the exclusives.
Right,
And I feel like they're weaker now than they ever have been.
across the board.
And which is why I haven't felt the need to get a console since the PS2.
Right.
It's just because the exclusives have been so weak.
Well, see, back in the day when I had an Xbox 360, I played Halo as my game, right? And so that's why I was Xbox all the way, because I loved Halo. Halo kind of blech now. Like, I played the last one, didn't love it. Multiplayer's the same. It's kind of like Call of Duty for me now. It's just kind of like it's the same thing over and over again. I just don't want it. And so I like exclusives like Until Dawn. It's a horror game on PS4. The Nathan Drake, all that. What's the title of that game?
Uncharted.
Uncharted. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Nathan. I just have the Nathan Drake collection that has like all of them on it.
See, the thing is, if you're coming at it from that angle and like you've decided the exclusives are what is going to make me decide what to play on, if you're coming at it from that direction, the obvious choice is PC. Every single time you have
Right.
like there are entire genres that just can't exist on console.
I love the indie genre on PC, and I do
Yeah.
have a PC and I play occasionally, not as much as Justin, but I like Steam is great.
Yeah.
Like just being able to go on there and say, find me an indie game for $1.
Yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
you can find a game that you've never even heard of that's cool and
Right.
it's dirt cheap.
Yeah, and it's just something like, because I think everyone who actually games a lot gets like the gamer boredom, where you're like, yeah, I have 20 games, but
Right.
what do I play?
Yeah.
And so if I can go on Steam and get like this indie horror game for free or something, and it might be total crap, but it's something to entertain me for a little bit. I remember I played this game, Heroes and Generals or something, and it was like a World War II shooter, like Call of Duty was, and it was completely multiplayer and it was free. And I played that thing for weeks.
Yeah.
And you played that with me, didn't you?
Yeah, I
think
played
you
a couple
did.
times, yeah.
Yeah, and I played WoW. Not a huge fan of grinding in games.
Yeah.
So that one's a little bit harder, like Diablo and all those MMORPGs. Like I like the idea, But when I have to, and I like playing dungeons and stuff where you go and kill stuff, but
Mhm.
grinding in the world to level up and stuff and doing the same, like after a time, I have to be something else. I used to put my laptop right beside my computer and I'd watch YouTube videos while I.
That's when you know it's time to
play.
stop.
Yeah, that's too much media input for you. But so I know you fall on PC is your thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I've already said I like PlayStation more. We got to get at least a little bit of opinion out of you before we end.
I couldn't choose. I mean, it would totally come down to exclusives. And at this point, like I said, there's just not enough to make me actually buy either one.
PC Master Race.
I do own a 3DS, so I guess I'm on the Nintendo team.
Oh yeah, what do you play on the Nintendo 3DS?
I love Monster Hunter. I play a ton of that.
You've talked about that a lot, and I have
Yeah.
no idea what it is.
It's hard to describe. It's kind of like, it's a lot like the closest thing, and the thing it gets compared to most is probably Dark Souls or something like that.
Okay.
It's
That makes
sort
sense.
of like very deliberate melee combat against bosses. Just
I'll have to check
there's
that
like
out.
no trash monsters really.
I've always kind of wanted to get back. I had a DS Lite, I think, and I kind of wanted to get back into DSs because I like Nintendo games to a point, but I don't want to pay $1 million for a console or a Wii or
Yeah,
something that I'll never
same.
use.
Well, I think the Wii has this exact same problem. Is like it has exclusives, but I don't want to play any of them. So, or at
Yeah.
least not $300 worth.
Absolutely, that's right. Well, that was our talk about games, evolution of gaming, and what we think about consoles and where they're headed. Remember, don't ever forget about the Sega Dreamcast.
Yeah, please.
Don't ever.
May
Justin
it
wants you to
live
get
forever
this.
in our hearts and minds.
Yes, so please check us out next time. Follow us on all the social medias. Become a YouTube subscriber or Patreon if you want to see my car get covered in schmut.
I know I want to.
All right, guys. See you next week.
See you next week.